Well, Chris Popper, I'm joined by Dr. Marc Gousse, who's the new superintendent here at AOS 91 and in the superintendent's office. I've never been in the superintendent's office. That's a good thing, at least today. Welcome to the island. You've just moved up here from the Westbrook area.
Yes. My wife and I, we just sold our home in Portland, and so I guess we're approaching a month that we've been in the area now.
How do you like it?
I guess I know why they call it Eden. It's paradise. It's beautiful.
Even with all the traffic during the summer.
Well, you know, there's always going to be challenges, but that's okay.
So you're a Maine Maritime Academy graduate.
Yes.
You are a commander in the Merchant Marine?
No, I was a retired commander in the United States Navy.
Navy, okay.
But I was a merchant mariner as well.
So that kind of dovetails nicely with here on the island.
Yeah, we hope so. I think there are some interesting parallels. Certainly there's a rich tradition, a maritime tradition. There's a huge connection with the academy and maritime-related industry, whether it's Maine Maritime or it's just you know, it's fishing or it's transportation. I think there are some unique things. It's kind of funny how life works and how things are aligned. But yeah, it's dovetailed really well.
And you're collegiate. You went to college in Maine as well. So pretty much lived and been educated in Maine and worked in Maine for the vast majority. Yeah,
I guess I'm as native as you can get without being from here.
Yeah.
But yes, I was born and raised in Central Maine, and you know, coming out of school, I had an uncle who was one of the first classes of Maine Maritime, huge influence in my life. So he really was inspirational in having me go to the academy, and I had a cousin who also graduated in the early 70s. So I was like the third member of my family to go, strong tradition, which was great. But I loved the academy, and I loved the maritime industry and the Navy and all that. But you know, it's a huge commitment being away from the family.
Yeah.
And I actually fell into education by accident. So it's another story. It was really when I was in between shipping assignments, I was home, that I had a friend who was a teacher, and they were short on teachers, and they called me in to substitute, and I was hooked.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
You're superintendent of a big area from, I mean, the AOS.
It's huge.
And it's meetings every night. There are meetings out on the islands. It's and I know that with previous superintendents, it's proven to be, I mean, a challenge just because you've got to be everywhere.
Well, yes, and you know, I knew that coming in.
Right.
You know, I knew what I was signing on for. That being said, you know, family is important to me, as it is for these people that give their service. But, you know, at the same time, I think it represents an opportunity. Me coming from the outside, I can bring a different perspective. And, you know, what I've learned in the time that I've been here is that, this is an outstanding school system. The kids do well. There's strong support for the schools. And so I think the last thing anybody wants to do is compromise that, and I recognize that. B, you know, to a person, people want to know how we can do more for kids in terms of resources. And it's not about spending more money. It might be it could be spending less money. It could be using resources differently. But sometimes, because of the structure that we presently have and the way we're set up, we might not be able to field a specific team or activity because there aren't enough kids connected to it.
Right.
So I think that presents an opportunity for us to talk about how we're structured without endangering what communities have, which is A, their schools, B, their structure, and C, their voice. You know, I've talked extensively with Rob LeBeau. I've talked with Howard And I've spent the better part of the last few weeks getting out, meeting area business people, community members, and I plan to do that through the year. A lot of talk and chat to learn what people want. And I attended a forum too on what the district could look like if it were structured differently. So I'm conscious of that. But the bottom line is, I can only be in one place at one time, right?
I know Howard Coulter had suggested about, it's time to look at some consolidation. Mm-hmm. Just like you said, though, communities love their school, they love their post office.
Yeah.
It's like, and they love their church. I mean, and those are the three bedrocks of like what maybe
Well, there's also a fourth one.
Okay, what's that one?
Maine people don't like it forced down their throat, and they don't like to be told what to do.
Oh, absolutely not.
Local control is huge.
Yeah.
And I think if you present an opportunity and ask a question and give them the opportunity to look at it and make a choice, that generally carries the day. I think when we look at the school consolidation model from a state perspective many years ago,
that got force-fed down.
Right, not to politicize it, but if whoever had been governor, if it had been offered and incentivized, it might look differently today. But the fact that it was a forced march and they were told what to do, I think it was doomed from the start.
Yes.
And so I don't want to be a party to any type of conversation where things are a forced march as opposed to what would people like to do.
Right. Well, and absolutely, if you can get people to buy into the model, yep, it's a lot easier.
Well, in many ways, Chris, we're operating that way. I would ask people to consider, first of all, we have one superintendent. That's fine. We have one athletic administrator. We have a high school, and I've done the research on how this entity came to be. And, I know that, through the 60s, that was a tumultuous time when it first came together. But now I've yet to meet a person that doesn't love this institution and how it's structured. So it can work without compromising the elementary structure or those other pieces. But when I look at our resources, we have communities. We undergo 9 audits. 9 audits. We approve 9 budgets.
Yeah.
So those are resources that communities need to look at. And when you talk about the meetings, again, I understand what I signed on for, but I might be able to be doing different things with time if we had a different organizational structure. So I don't think we have to look at necessarily changes organizationally. Change is always a tough thing.
Horrible.
But I do think that there are some efficiencies that can be realized. Regardless, if nothing changes, there are still some things that we can do, and I think I've just scratched the surface on those ideas, talking to people.
What are your goals for this year? Obviously getting out and talking to people.
Well, my goals really, first of all, I think anybody would be foolish to come in and try to, when a system is well run and students are experiencing success, I think the number one overarching goal I would have is to be able to continue to facilitate that work.
Yeah.
That's number one. And not disrupt anything that's going positively. The other goal that I have is there's an annual report with goals. I would like to see that transition into into a strategic plan, and part of that is me having a listening tour with students, with parents, with elected officials, with business leaders. I've already begun that process informally, but by listening to people and finding out what they value and also what their concerns or thoughts are, I think we put that together in a strategic plan where I can report out annually, state of the schools report, how resources are being utilized, and number one with the goals of student achievement, facilities and finance, and also citizenship. And when I say citizenship, I'm not just talking about students, I'm talking about our staff and our communities. So that would be a huge piece for me, and I think that's going to be a process that will unfold through the year. Hopefully I present that to the board, and then the outcome of that would be morphing that annual report into a strategic planning, which I would envision to be a 5-year document, a living, breathing document, not something that sits on a shelf. But I literally used the strategic plan in my previous position every single day, every day. And it was something that we referenced, and teachers knew it, kids knew it, our board knew it, and you get grounded, and then you have impact and alignment in an organization.
Right. Everybody's moving in that common direction.
That's the whole, and everybody should have input towards it.
Right.
And when you give the report, if there are things that you aren't necessarily realizing, you adjust.
Right. And that's that living, breathing document.
Absolutely.
That, the road isn't always straight. Sometimes it has to curve a little bit.
The other goal that I have, or hope, and I've already begun this, is to be reaching out to individuals that have capacity to make connections with the school. So I reached out to Kevin Snyder, the other new superintendent, who has children in the school, so by default he's automatically invested.
He's a stakeholder, sure.
I've reached out to local media folks, media individuals, and hope to have an ongoing relationship with them so that we can report out what's happening in the schools on a regular basis. I've not met all of them, but some of the town managers, and making sure that I have a relationship with them. Elected officials, I've just begun to scratch the surface, but do that. And certainly, I can't wait for the kids to come back. You'll see me in the classrooms.
And I guess I was gonna ask you about that. I mean, what's your interaction? I mean, you're responsible for a big district.
Yeah.
But is it realistic to see you walking in classrooms, in the hallways?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
This is a district of 1,500 students. I came from a district of 2,500. I was in every school every week. Now, I understand the geography is different, and it might look a little different, but it's important to me to be in the schools. The frequency may look a little different, but my hope, my goal will be that when I walk into a school building, kids won't say, "Who's that guy?"
Yeah.
I want kids to know who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
I want teachers to be comfortable. I want to be able to read to kids. I want to be able to teach a lesson. And I think the superintendent, just like a principal, as the educational leader of the district, you have to be out there and know what is or isn't happening. And how can I make decisions and recommendations on policy and on finance if I don't know what's happening out there in the schools?
Yeah, if you're living in an insulated room, it's not going to happen.
I'm not a person that it's wed to a chair. I just can't operate that way. I'll do the things I need to do with the paperwork, but being in the schools and being with kids is really important.
I know that, when we used to broadcast basketball games, you'd see Rob Lebo at all the basketball games at home.
I spent a long time as a former coach and a former athletic administrator.
Yeah.
I chaired the basketball committee for the Maine Principals Association. I'm a huge supporter of those events, and not just the athletic events, but the drama, the music, the art shows. Those pieces are really important, and they're as important as what we do in the classroom because they're an extension of the classroom. Right. For many of those things, those are what keep kids in school. And, that shades back to one of the other things you asked me about. As outstanding as a system as this is, I want to look at kids who, for whatever reason, have left or might be disenfranchised. And that's an area we can improve upon in this district.
How do people get a hold of you?
Well, did you have any trouble getting a hold of me?
I didn't, but I'm persistent. I don't, but
I'm not hard to get a hold of. My office is here at Low Desert.
So they can call the high school 288-5011 and get connected down here.
288-5049.
Okay.
Which is directly the superintendent's office.
Okay.
And my assistant, who's outstanding, Selena Dunbar, is very good at providing me any of the contact info if I'm not in the office. I have a rule that it's a 24-hour rule. If it's not an emergency, I try to get back to people within 24 hours. They certainly can send me an email, but my preference is always a phone call, and my first preference is always personal. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So
but you're a busy man. I mean, you got to call and set up an appointment,
But,
or
email.
unless people see you.
right, email, phone calls, the website,
Yeah.
lists information. But yeah, I'm living in the area, so
Yeah, but you don't want to be bothered while you're out.
It's funny because I've walked down the street and people will say, "You're that guy."
Right.
So it's nice to have people recognize
Right.
me, and we've already struck up some conversations, about school, and no, I think that's the other thing. When I go out and I see people, I want them
Yeah.
to engage me.
Well, and you are the face of the educational system here on the island.
Well, I think that's true of our principals, and that's true of our teachers. I think that comes with the territory, and for me, that's an expectation. I think it's funny. My wife knows if I say I'm going to the grocery store, I'll be back in 20 minutes. She knows usually that means an hour or more,
Yeah.
because I'm going to run into somebody and we're
Right.
going to chat.
Right. That's awesome.
That's part of the deal.
All right, camera's yours. Parting comments.
Well, I'm very pleased and actually thrilled to be here. This is, it's certainly an area that has so much beauty, but beyond that, the one thing I've come to appreciate are the people that I've met, and the people have been so warm and welcoming and genuine, and it's just it's exceeded all of our expectations, and I can't thank people enough. Especially, it's been huge to just pick up stakes in the middle of my life, in the middle of my career, and come to a place 150 miles away.
Yeah.
But no, the way that we've been received has just been nothing short of outstanding, and we feel blessed to be here. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thanks.
Thanks.
Check out all the other videos we have on the WDEA YouTube channel.